Afzal Parambil is Emirates Airlines Regional Manager for Southern Africa, and he joins us now from Durban to have a little conversation. Great to have you. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
How was yesterday? I know that yesterday was the opening day. Obviously, we saw the tourism minister and all the role players gathering there yesterday for this big opening. How was it for you?
I think it was excellent. You could see that from every exhibitor or the visitor. We found all of them are excited. And it was after 2.5 years, you rightly said, it's good to see people in person and meet with them and exchange ideas, which was missing for the last 2 years. So, yeah, it was very exciting yesterday.
It really has been tough. I mean, on everybody in the tourism sector. It doesn't matter which avenue you look at in tourism. It has been dramatically affected globally due to the pandemic. And now, things are starting to build themselves up again. But there's a long way for recovery. I mean, you coming from the airline industry, talk to us about the recovery process that the airline is going through, particularly on the continent right now.
As you rightly said, it wasn't easy for any airline. Even an international airline, well-established airline, have struggled to deal with the pandemic. Having said that, pre-COVID, we had 49 weekly flights to South Africa, for example, and we operated 21 countries in continent Africa. But if you look at it, we only were able to rebuild 26 of that flights back in South Africa. But having said that, we already established all of Africa. We had 21 flights, 21 destinations in Africa we already established. From an Emirates airline perspective, if I could say, we have restored almost 70% of pre-pandemic capacity. Currently, we are operating over 1 million seats per week. So it is hard, it's difficult. One of the key challenges we are facing is to deal with the demand. So demand is existing and demand has come back very fast. But we as airlines are struggling to manage the demand.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing to hear. Actually, I'm quite happy to hear that. When you talk about struggling to manage the demand, is that from South Africa out, or is it also visitors coming into? I'm focusing in on South Africa. I know that I should be focusing on the continent as well, but I'd like to put them in the same basket. The demand coming in, how is that?
I think both directions. We say that we usually have a directional imbalance, but in South Africa perspective, it is both outbound and inbound doing extremely well. And all our traditional markets used to visit South Africa as a leisure destination, like Europe or Americas or subcontinent, all has picked up. So it is both directions. It's not just one direction. South Africans would like to go to, or the pent-up demand that we call, want to go and visit their family and friends around the world. Whereas a lot of tourist and leisure customers are looking forward to come back to South Africa now that they see a stability in the country.
So let's talk about the services and the routes. I said in the introduction that Emirates was opening up routes again, reinstating those that they had stopped, both locally here in South Africa and on the continent after having stopped them during COVID-19. So talk to us about the services that have now resumed. I think you said you are back to pre-pandemic routes now and levels, so you are back to normal. Is that correct?
Globally, we have had 150 plus destinations. Currently, we rebuilt 130 of them.
Okay.
From a South Africa perspective, we had 3 points we operated. We brought all 3 points back, which is Durban, Cape Town, and Joburg. Obviously, the number of frequency to Joburg have reduced. So instead of 4 flights a day, we now operating with double daily to Joburg. That obviously we are managing our internal challenges in terms of our capacities and the aircraft availability and crew availability. But it is nothing to do with the demand. But yeah, we are 70% back globally in terms of market, our size of operation, and we are anticipating it goes up to 80% by end of June.
Yeah, I mean, we do, of course, know that relations with, tourism as a hub. I mean, Dubai is massive in terms of a destination and a lot to do with the airline that flies into Dubai and then, services so many other destinations. Routes in South Africa, I suppose would you look at this as a very lucrative route for the airline? I mean, one is reading into that because of what you're saying. I mean, the fact that services are already up there, the demand is there. Lots of partnerships in the pipeline. Anything looking into the future?
Yeah, a couple of things. So yes, South Africa is a strategic market for Emirates, not just because of a source market. It is also a fantastic destination from across the market that we operate from. So South Africa is a leisure destination from globally. So that's why we call this market as a strategic market. From a partnership perspective, one good thing going to happen by end of the month is that we are stepping up our relationship with Airlink. We will be announcing our code-share partnership with Airlink by end of this month. And that obviously means customers from the network or from whichever point they're traveling from to South Africa, they can now seamlessly travel to the final destination, could be a second or third tier cities within South Africa. As a phase one, we will be operating code share partnership to the domestic points in South Africa, but eventually our intention with Airlink to go regional destination. So the destination that we don't cover in Southern Africa will be covering through Airlink. That's one of the important milestone that we could say that in South Africa, this is the first code share partnership after South African Airways. And we continue to go with South African partnership. But in addition to that, now we're adding Airlink to it.
Fantastic! That's exciting news. I'm happy to hear this news. But just as we start wrapping up, just to perhaps give us an understanding of some of the trends that we can expect going forward on the airline industry. As you mentioned, we all know it has been very, very difficult. And every time there's a new variant of COVID, and every time we start seeing markets closing and routes closing again, and the access onto these airlines, and it's a very up and down, and we've seen that for the last 2 years. But just trends looking forward, I imagine you've been looking and seeing and predicting what things are going to look like going forward for this year. What are those trends we should look for?
Look, yesterday, like you rightly said, yesterday I was having discussions with the multiple stakeholders in Indaba, and one thing we all agree that the market dynamics have changed, consumer behavior has changed. So we, as be it a hotelier in South Africa or a tour operator in South Africa or an airline operating into South Africa, I think we all are facing the same challenges because we are trying to understand the changed market condition. And people do, I don't think people stop traveling because of COVID. People stop traveling purely because of the uncertainty around travel.
Yeah.
They were scared that if I go to a destination, will I be get stranded? They rightly said, which country is going to close the border. So that has now been subtle. We would believe that people are more confident to travel. That's exactly what we're seeing. One of the key change in consumer behavior that we see, South Africa always been a well-advanced booking market, which has changed drastically now. Many of our customers are booking very last minute, purely because I believe that is because the uncertainty around the travel at this point in time. But we are getting the booking, but it is very, very close to the travel date. That is one of the significant change. But the destination perspective also, there are a lot of new destinations have emerged during COVID, where the countries which kept open the border, like Maldives, become one of the top destinations from South Africa instead of Mauritius, for example. Similarly, when we reopened Dubai as a destination for South Africa, immediately that climbed to #1 position from South Africa for Emirates. So we see a traditional destination be still in demand. We are also seeing a lot of a lot of new destinations popping up into that list.
Fascinating. Afzal, thank you. Thanks so much for talking to us. We really appreciate your time, and we hope that the Travel Indaba is a great success for you. And talking to us from Durban, from the Travel Indaba, it was a great pleasure talking to Afzal Parambil. He's the Emirates Airlines Regional Manager for Southern Africa. So very interesting trends on travel, and certainly it is. I think people really booking last minute because they've seen what it's like. If that flight is cancelled or your accommodation's cancelled, and you just don't know what those terms and conditions are. So very, very interesting trend.